Welcome back to Capitals of the World, the joy of learning. Today we're traveling to some of the most extreme and fascinating regions of our planet, the Arctic in the north and the Antarctic in the south. Now, you may be wondering, if this channel is all about capitals, why talk about the poles, where there are no countries and no capitals? The answer is simple. The Arctic and the Antarctic are still essential parts of our globe. They play a huge role in our climate, ecosystems, and human history, and they deserve their own episode. Let's begin our journey north and south. Part 1. Where are the poles? Let's start with geography. The Arctic is located at the very top of the globe, surrounding the North Pole. It's not a continent, but a vast frozen ocean covered with drifting ice, surrounded by the northernmost lands of countries like Canada, Greenland, Russia, Norway, and the United States, Alaska. On the other side of the Earth, the Antarctic is the continent surrounding the South Pole. Unlike the Arctic, it's a landmass, huge, frozen, and covered by a thick ice sheet. It is Earth's coldest, driest, and windiest continent. So here's the first big difference. The Arctic is an ocean surrounded by continents. The Antarctic is a continent surrounded by ocean. The Arctic is located at the very top of the globe, surrounding the North Pole. It's not a continent, but a vast frozen ocean covered with drifting ice, surrounded by the northernmost lands of countries like Canada, Greenland, Russia, Norway, and the United States, Alaska. Places like Greenland and northern Canada form the edges of the Arctic, but human life persists at these edges, towns, ports, and indigenous communities. The Antarctic, by contrast, is a continent, a massive landmass covered by a thick ice sheet. Its ice sheet makes Antarctica the highest continent on average. One is ocean surrounded by continents, the other is continent surrounded by ocean. This difference affects climate, ecology, and how ice behaves. Arctic sea ice grows and shrinks with seasons, influencing marine life and navigation. In Antarctica, most changes happen at the edges. Ice shelves calve icebergs into the surrounding Southern Ocean. The Arctic touches multiple sovereign nations, so jurisdiction, shipping lanes, and resource questions are complex. Antarctica is governed by the Antarctic Treaty System, preserving it for science and peace. So remember the simple rule. Arctic is an ocean at the top. Antarctic is a frozen continent at the bottom. Next, who lives there? Let's explore the human and animal inhabitants of these polar worlds. Then we'll look at the scientists who live there temporarily. When people imagine the polar regions, they often think of penguins, polar bears, or maybe Eskimos. But let's clear this up. In the Arctic, humans do live. Indigenous peoples such as the Inuit have adapted to the harsh environment for thousands of years. Other groups include the Sami, Chukchi, and Yupik. Alongside them, modern towns and cities exist, especially in northern Russia and Scandinavia. In the Antarctic, there are no native peoples. Nobody has ever lived there permanently. The only inhabitants are scientists and researchers who stay at international research stations for months at a time. As for animals, polar bears, penguins, there are important differences. Polar bears are found only in the Arctic. Penguins live only in the Antarctic, so you'll never see them side by side in the wild. Other creatures include seals, whales, Arctic foxes, snowy owls in the north, and in the south, albatrosses, whales, and seals. Indigenous cultures have rich traditions adapted to polar life, language, clothing, and knowledge of ice and seasons. These communities play vital roles in conservation and local knowledge of changing environments. In many Arctic places, indigenous knowledge and scientific research work together to monitor change. Climate change threatens traditional hunting routes, infrastructure, and ways of life. Both polar regions host life, different in each pole but equally remarkable. Next, we'll look at research and science at the poles. Scientists study ice, climate, and even space here. Both regions are natural laboratories for science. Ice cores record centuries of climate data, critical to understanding our past and future. In the Arctic, research focuses on melting sea ice, wildlife, and how climate change affects indigenous communities. Teams monitor animal populations, sea ice thickness, and community impacts in places such as Svalbard and Greenland. In the Antarctic Treaty System ensures the continent is used only for peaceful purposes and scientific study. Over 70 research stations are spread across the ice, including McMurdo, Vostok, and the Amundsen-Scott South Pole Station. Scientists study glaciers, climate history, and atmospheric gases trapped in ice. The dry, thin air makes Antarctica one of the best places on Earth for astronomy and atmospheric research. Getting people and supplies to polar stations requires icebreakers, cargo planes, and careful planning. Life at stations is communal. Work, research, and maintenance round the clock in short seasons. Polar research is often international. Scientists from many countries share data and facilities. Shared findings guide global climate policy and deepen our understanding of Earth systems. Researchers have documented glacier retreat, shrinking sea ice, and changing migration patterns in wildlife. Ice cores reveal volcanic eruptions, temperature swings, and greenhouse gas history. Understanding polar science helps us understand the planet's future. Next, the global importance of the poles. The Arctic and the Antarctic may feel far away, but they affect all of us. Their ice sheets act like giant mirrors, reflecting sunlight and helping regulate Earth's temperature. The melting of glaciers and ice caps is directly linked to sea level rise. Sea level rise threatens coastal cities and communities worldwide. Polar waters drive global ocean circulation, moving heat and nutrients around the planet. Changes in sea ice and salinity have cascading effects on weather and marine ecosystems. Polar regions are home to unique ecosystems that are fragile and highly vulnerable to climate change. Disruptions to sea ice affect plankton blooms, fish stocks, and the animals and people that depend on them. For local communities, the stakes are immediate. Homes, food sources, and cultural survival are at risk. Protecting polar regions is part of global climate action. What happens there affects all nations. Long-term monitoring and models help predict impacts on weather, sea level, and ecosystems. From storm intensity to fisheries and coastal planning, polar change has global consequences. Studying and protecting these regions is not just about polar bears or penguins. It's about the future of our planet. Actions we take now influence global outcomes for decades to come. Now, some fun facts and myths to clear up. Let's clear up a few common misconceptions. No, Eskimos do not live in the Antarctic, only in the Arctic. The Antarctic is uninhabited by indigenous peoples. Humans only visit for science. Polar bears and penguins never meet in nature. They live at opposite poles, each adapted to its own environment. The Antarctic is actually the highest continent in terms of average elevation because of its thick ice sheet. Its thick ice raises the average surface elevation above other continents. The Arctic Ocean is the world's smallest ocean, but it plays a major role in global ocean circulation. Small in size, huge in influence. Fun fact, the aurora borealis is common at high latitudes, caused by particles from the sun hitting our atmosphere. Ice cores can hold tiny bubbles of ancient air, windows into Earth's climate history, and polar oceans are rich feeding grounds for whales that migrate great distances. So, even though the North Pole and the South Pole have no capitals, they are truly vital parts of our world. The Arctic and Antarctic are Earth's frontiers, reminding us of the beauty, fragility, and importance of protecting our planet. Thank you for joining me today on Capitals of the World, the joy of learning. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video with friends who love geography and exploration. And remember, geography is not just about capitals. It's about understanding our world as a whole. Thanks for watching. Until next time.